Benjamin, I'll begin with you. We've had a day of extremely moving images and people who in some cases haven't been seen or heard from since October 7th when they were brutally abducted by Hamas terrorists. Just as an Israeli, talk us through how you feel today.
The return of 20 of our hostages, the living hostages, absolute euphoria right across the political spectrum, throughout the geography of the State of Israel and the Jewish world in its entirety. There was some question about whether two of those hostages were alive. Thank God they are. It's wonderful to see them reunited with their families. Of course, we do temper our celebration by the fact that we now have to move on to this macabre situation with the return of the 28 deceased hostages. That's going to be an ongoing source of pain for the people of Israel. And then we have to look to what the implications are of the second part of this deal, which is a topic in and of itself. But again, I think that we need to express profound thanks. I know that there are some people who are not of this view, but I am. Profound thanks to President Trump, profound thanks to the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, each and every one of them, men and female alike.
468 soldiers fell fighting in Gaza.
468 soldiers have fallen, and they will know, and those by whom they are survived will know the virtue of the sacrifice that they made by way of the return of these hostages today. But I also want to say there does need to be thanks expressed to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Not everybody is doing so. I think it's important that we do. I believe that how he conjures with the fact that October 7th happened on his watch is his to do. There's no getting away from that. But withstood enormous and inordinate international and domestic pressure, and these are the fruits of that withstanding.
The families of remaining hostages, the deceased hostages, say that Hamas is reneging on the deal already. It's trying to kind of wring every last bit of suffering out of the Israeli people that it can, won't hand over all of the remains. What can Israel do at this point to retaliate?
I think that everybody should keep in mind that there was a deal that was supposed to be a global, total deal. It was supposed to be from the beginning to end, the return of all of the hostages, the disarming of Hamas, and the removal of them as leadership within the Gaza Strip. That was then very swiftly cut into two. The second phase is really inclusive, in my opinion, now of the return of the remaining dead hostages, although it shouldn't be. I think that Israel and Israelis need to prepare themselves to the fact that there may be ongoing fighting, that actually we don't know peace with Gaza. We're not going to know peace with Gaza until Hamas fully disarms. It's not going to do that. And until Hamas really ceases to be in leadership inside the Gaza Strip, which I find difficult to believe will come about. Time will tell. But in terms of the hostages and their return, quite frankly, I think we do have to be prepared to continue the fight for that return. And there are teams and units that are set up to and are dedicated for the repatriation of the remains of these hostages. And I'm hopeful that'll come about as quickly as possible.
And discussions now move to Sharm el-Sheikh, of course. President Trump's there alongside the Egyptian President Sisi. What will be discussed in Sharm el-Sheikh, and does it bear any relation to the reality on the ground in Gaza?
I think that there's now, what we've seen so far is complete dismantling of what people said was Yahya Sinwar's vision. They say that Sinwar, in part, launched the October 7th massacre in order to bring about a complete end and the destruction of the Abraham Accords and the addition of other countries to those accords, specifically Saudi Arabia at that time. And there were many people who looked on as the deterioration of Israel's image abroad continued to intensify and to grow and said Sinwar's image and vision is coming about. And actually what we're seeing is the exact opposite of that. It's being completely destroyed. Israel seems to be poised to have normalization agreements with additional states. We don't know when, but it does seem likely that will come about. And again, it's testament not only to President Trump's backing of Israel, to the victory over Hamas, which we have definitely had, not the complete elimination of them, but the victory nonetheless, and also to Prime Minister Netanyahu's leadership, which should not really be disputed. I don't think any of his critics would have been able to withstand the pressures that he has withstood.
Here, the whole world has to gather. Everybody has to come together to talk about Gaza and how to fix it. How do you explain the constant internationalization of this conflict? And does it help, or does it, just make everything harder? You've got Norway in there, I think, Turkey, of course. The list goes on.
Of course, it doesn't help at all. The answer to your question, Laura, is that the Palestinians and the plight of the Palestinian Arabs is an industry. We all know it. There are people who are well-salaried, who are corrupted by way of their salaries, such as UNRWA and others. There's an old saying, if you're not at dinner table, you might be on the menu. And I highly suspect that these nations will be banding about between them different ways in which they can bring the situation to the disadvantage of the State of Israel. I think it's very regrettable that Israel's not present at this summit.
You think Prime Minister Netanyahu should have gone?
Yeah, well, there are many people at the top echelons who could have gone. I can well understand if the Prime Minister didn't want to go during the holy day, and I respect that. But there are others who could have been sent in his stead, whose mission statement it is to be at these places. And I will also just say, what needs to be acknowledged here, given that Israel has silenced its guns at the point of it receiving its hostages in return, is that all of the rebel all of the distraction, all of the damage, all of the bloodshed, all of the fallen soldiers, all of the Gazans who have been killed inside the Gaza Strip, all of that is squarely and uniquely the responsibility of Hamas.
And perhaps most importantly, the diminished territory.
Absolutely.
The so-called state of Palestine is now smaller than it was 2 years ago.
The non-state of Palestine is now smaller than it was. By the way, just to put my view forward, I don't think that it should be rebuilt. I don't think that the reward for October 7th should be that everybody gets brand new high-rise apartment buildings in the Gaza Strip. And I think that everybody should recognise all of that suffering is squarely to be laid at the feet of Hamas, because all of this could have stopped 750 days ago. If they'd just given us our hostages back, if they'd just agreed to disarm, none of what people have stood by horrified at would have taken place. And incidentally, if these nations that you see the flags of arrayed across the screen right now were so sincerely concerned about the well-being of the Gazan people, they would have absorbed the Gazan people, they would have assisted the Gazan people, and they would have taken the Gazan people into their borders. None of them did that, including those that are at the Gaza Strip, most notably Egypt. And I quite frankly give no credit whatsoever to these countries that have been applauded time and time and time again, erroneously so. There are only two countries that deserve our thanks and appreciation. One is the country in which we found ourselves now, State of Israel, and the other is the United States of America.
Yeah, it is looking a little like UN General Assembly round 2, isn't it?
Yeah, more nonsense from the international community.
Benjamin, just your reaction to what we were just hearing. Oh, there's Erdogan as well, talking of the Muslim Brotherhood.
My reaction actually to the images that we're seeing is I don't like it. I don't like this ebullience. This is not who we are as a people, the Jewish people. There are hostages who remain inside captivity in the Gaza Strip. There's a hostage there, Hadar Goldin, who was kidnapped in 2014. We're still waiting for his body to be back. His family was fighting alone and only got the support of the broader collective when, tragically, so many were taken into Gaza on October the 7th. We should not be party to, even here in the State of Israel.
Well, we're not.
No, but we should make a point of the fact that we're not. It shouldn't go unmentioned. We're still suffering. We've lost a lot of soldiers. And I also want to say one point that everybody should be clear about that differentiates our society from the Gazans. And this should not be lost on anybody. Who did we fight for and who are we celebrating coming back? Our Holocaust survivors, our elderly, our men, women, children, even our soldiers who were arrayed in a purely defensive position within our borders. Those are the people we are celebrating being returned.
Only 2 of the 20 returned today were soldiers.
2 of the 20 were soldiers. But from the beginning of this crisis is what I'm saying. Who is Hamas fighting to bring back? The worst psychopathic, murdering terrorists that anyone can possibly imagine. And not only do they want them out of their prisons, out of Israel's prisons, they want them back in their societies, ideally. And everybody should look on and note the fact that not only will Hamas cheer their return, but the ordinary Gazans will cheer their return as well. One is a normative society. The other one, I'm sorry, has a sickness well within it. And as long as that society is close to our borders, we will not know quiet. So I think all of this abuse, as I said, is over the top. And I want to make a direct point about the Qataris, massively responsible for what happened to us on October the 7th, and never should be confused as being
But do you think the Qataris have kind of tired of Hamas in a way, and they would kind of like to distance themselves a little bit? They got that very nice defence deal with the United States. They have a good relationship with President Trump. If they didn't have such a good relationship with the United States, they would be in a pretty precarious position in the region because they aren't particularly loved by their neighbours.
And none of these people did anything.
Why is he there?
None of these people did anything to alleviate
this is our young 19-year-old soldiers.
You know what I view this as, Laura? There's another saying in Britain, this is sloppy seconds. These are all the states that did nothing whatsoever to assist, and now they need to be given some sort of prize. And with regard to Qatar, no, I think they were simply backed into a corner. They've placed themselves and positioned themselves as the ultimate negotiators and brokers. They failed to do that time and again here. Eventually, the screws were turned, rightly so, by the Americans, and they had to move forward with something. But they're not to be trusted, and so many of these states have been proven bad faith actors and also completely, totally and utterly irrelevant, including the state in which both you and I grew up.
I'm not sure who.
The United Kingdom.
We haven't seen Keir Starmer come and shake Trump's hand yet.
He's there. He's at that.
He is there. He is there. He and Macron have been waiting. I'm not sure who this is, but yeah, I mean, what are the Hungarians doing there? I mean, why do countries have to gather in Egypt?
At least the Hungarians
talk about
are positive
Gaza
towards Israel.
Sure, but I mean, is it in their national interest to talk about the future of thousands of miles away? All right. well, world leader after world leader lining up to shake President Trump's hand. You have to give credit to President Trump's energy levels.
That I definitely.
I mean, we're looking at pictures on our screen of Eviatar David, who was quite clearly deliberately starved and really appeared to be on the brink of death, didn't he? But there he is back in the arms of his parents.
I just want to make mention of something very positive, actually, and Eviatar David is emblematic of this. The people who brought about the return of these living hostages, who stayed dedicated towards that fight and that battle, are more than deserving of some acknowledgement. People who, by the way, we shouldn't take for granted. President Donald Trump regularly spoke about bringing back, in his words, our hostages, even after the last living American hostage had been brought back. He remained absolutely dedicated to that. The returned hostages in earlier release deals who went into the fight, traveled the world, went to every hall of power wherever they could go, expending their energy, their talents, their abilities in order to bring back the people with whom they had been held in captivity. And of course, siblings such as Eli David, who I know very, very well from our organization's attachment to Eviatar, individuals such as Gal Gilboa Dalal, brother of Guy, who traveled anywhere and everywhere. We see here Sangauka there, who never stopped calling for the return of Hassan. And it should show everybody that each of us has the ability to affect the impact that we want to bring about. And furthermore, I'm sure there are many
Israel was told it was impossible. It would be impossible to go into Gaza. It would be impossible to go into Rafah. It would be impossible to fight them in the tunnels. All along the way, Israel has been told it was impossible, but they did it.
And they did it, and I bet that there are many viewers who thought about these hostages and wondered, is it time to give up hope? Surely they're no longer alive, especially after we saw Eviatar David. Well, here they are alive, and it shows us that we, the Jewish people, must never, ever give up hope until such time as it is proven to us that that hope should be abandoned. That wasn't the situation here. Here are these hostages up and on their feet, and thank God for it. And to all of those who campaigned so vigorously to bring them home, it's wonderful.
Most of all, the IDF soldiers, 486 IDF soldiers fell fighting the forces of evil, wickedness in Gaza. And I just want to talk about when Prime Minister Netanyahu gave his speech at the Knesset earlier today. He actually singled out Ari Spitz, a young IDF soldier. They panned to him. He was injured fighting in Gaza. And it was just a reminder of just how young some of these soldiers are. I mean, he was, 19 years old, some of these soldiers, sent into, barely out of school, sent into Gaza. And when you look around the world, when you've seen people of a similar age taking to the streets, marching and chanting, they still are, even though there's a ceasefire. There's no bombs falling on Gaza anymore. People are marching in the streets, calling, for Israel to stop fighting Hamas. It truly is astonishing to think that they're of the same generation. And
the incredible thing is, Laura, if you ask most of those injured soldiers, would they go back and fight knowing that they were to come out with these injuries? Every single one that I've met says yes, they would, because they understood that any of the hostages could be any of those injured soldiers, and their fate is tied to the fate of the hostages. A remarkable story of Israeli resilience. Tragically, a new demographic of amputees on the streets of the State of Israel. Testament to the work that's still left ahead in order to bring us back to full height. It really is an extraordinary country and an extraordinary place to be on this historic day. Benjamin Anthony, thank you very much. Sorry, it's been a long day. Benjamin Anthony, thank you very much indeed.